Quick one, nothing here is financial advice. It's for entertainment and educational purposes only. Always do your own research or speak to a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Enjoy the episode and like and subscribe.
GM and welcome back to the channel. In this video, as you can see, XSAT, the docking layer for scalability of Bitcoin. We're going to find out exactly what that means and what XSAT, aka extending Satoshi, pretty catchy name, are actually up to here and the solution they're providing. So let's take a 30,000 foot view over this one, see what it's about and the problem they're solving for. So if you enjoyed this one, make sure you do subscribe to this channel and let's jump in. So let's start here with the opportunity at hand. We know that Bitcoin is the largest market cap cryptocurrency, roughly $1.3 trillion of an asset, but we are yet to really unlock that asset for all the different use cases that are available in this crazy world. So 1.3 trillion, yet the TVL of BTC is currently around 600 million bucks. To put that in perspective, Ethereum's TVL is 100x greater at $50 billion. So you can see this is a huge addressable market and a massive untapped sector that can be utilized. Furthermore, we're seeing applications really exploring how to utilize Bitcoin and native Bitcoin within their various apps. And many of the use cases we've seen on Ethereum, especially in the last cycle, think NFTs, DeFi, all these different things. We're now pretty much going full circle and these use cases are being looked at very seriously for implementation onto Bitcoin. So we're seeing a bit of a move from store of value into a more composable network here for BTC. Now let's talk about some of the problems. An obvious one here, if you've done any research into Bitcoin layer 2s or sidechains, depending on your various definitions, there's a heck of a lot of them. And we've seen in the past with the likes of Ethereum, what you get is liquidity fragmentation, poor user experience when there's just numerous L2s. So in order to tackle this fragmentation problem and the potential for disconnect between ecosystems, all of which are trying to attract the same pool of capital, well, can we therefore have an aggregation solution? And that is what XSAT is coming to the market with. They're looking to become that glue to fix together this expanding network of Bitcoin layer 2s and create a unified experience via its tech stack. And one of the cool ideas here is to have one unified wallet. Another issue we're seeing with Bitcoin more broadly and Bitcoin miners is the lack of profitability of these miners. Even the huge mining companies out there have suffered great losses, especially when it comes to the Bitcoin halving. As you can see, the Bitcoin halving on here taking profitability down, of course, difficulty going up, and the block rewards being cut in half when that happens. So what you're seeing now is the miners and mining pools make a real effort, a concerted effort to try and attract additional sources of revenue. Now with all the Bitcoin L2s, the sidechains, etc., there has been opportunity in that space. And this is something that XSAT is trying to provide in a real win-win scenario. The miners require additional revenue sources because it's just so competitive, the mining landscape out there. You've got to be mining with a large pool in order to get any rewards. And so any additional rewards, of course, will be helpful to the Bitcoin network and its security overall. So with the solution we're about to talk about, XSAT rewards, so the token XSAT will be coming out shortly. Bitcoin miners will be able to mine some of this using their proof of work resource with an additional, just a small amount of lift, no real hardship on them, a little bit of a tweak, if you will, and they'll be able to also help XSAT with mirroring the Bitcoin data onto the XSAT network. And for that, they'll be remunerated in the XSAT token. So that would be a win-win scenario. Now, RAM here, as you can see from this diagram, is a very highly valuable resource. Now, it has been tokenized and is a tradable asset. It is real-world asset because it is physical RAM, and this makes up a core component of XSAT's offering. So therefore, they can tap into RAM as that resource and the real ace up the sleeve here, because what has happened over the last 6 years or so, they've got to the point of indexing the full history of Bitcoin's UTXO data. This is over 170 million blocks and counting, meaning that XSAT is tapping into and harnessing this RAM and mirroring this Bitcoin data onto the XSAT proof of stake network. So RAM is the super valuable real world resource here, and having done all of that indexing of UTXO data, as you would imagine, this is very expensive to store. Therefore, they've stored it in RAM. This is hardware RAM. This means that it's easily accessible to smart contracts without the need for oracles, no third parties. This RAM can be read from and written to, and so you can query the UTXO data. So in layman's terms, this means you can use Bitcoin UTXO data to trigger smart contracts. So Bitcoin Trust and decentralization and its security for smart contracts. So this is a big unlock. So the quick TLDR, the protocol mirrors Bitcoin's original data onto the XSAT network using RAM for decentralized high-speed storage, and this allows Bitcoin assets to trustlessly cross-chain to the XSAT network. This means you can utilize Bitcoin to directly run dApps, as data from the Bitcoin layer 1 can now trigger smart contracts on this EVM environment. So as you can see from the diagram, XSAT refers to themselves as the docking layer for Bitcoin, so that's what they call it, providing essentially a data availability layer for Bitcoin L2s and sidechains. So an easy analogy here would be to say the Celestia of Bitcoin. It's definitely more complex than that, but as a mental model, it's not a bad one to go with. But essentially, they're acting as a service layer for these L2s or applications, allowing them to tap into the Bitcoin network, but doing so in a fully decentralized and cost-efficient manner. That is one of the key highlights here. So think of them as a bit of a conduit for the Bitcoin ecosystem, allowing assets and data to move between networks and to be utilized in an aggregated manner across various sidechains and L2s. Data availability, as you would imagine from a Bitcoin perspective, is a huge cost. The solution afforded by RAM is one that is a real moat for XSAT. So what this will allow for is other L2 solutions to plug into this aggregation layer to utilize this data that's going to be transparent, decentralized, and they can apply that to their own use cases, be that BRC20s, ordinals, runes, etc. And this will be in an economical manner. The stack is already there. Essentially, XSAT will be a business-to-business front end for clients who require RAM for their data storage. If, for example, an L2 wanted to do this for themselves, this would cost an enormous amount of money. It would be hard to ensure it would be fully decentralized. And of course, the infrastructure wouldn't be battle tested, but this has existed for quite some time. And it is from a battle tested network, been around since 2017. And so you have that Lindy effect, putting XSAT in a very strong position. Then in terms of the current landscape, what you have is these L2s coming with trust assumptions and utilizing off-chain data. So this will be a major value add to devs and users alike in the original Bitcoin ethos of don't trust, verify. So the overall aim here of this docking layer is to actually connect all the different BTC scaling solutions and try and unify them under a single system, therefore addressing the issues around fragmented liquidity and poor user experience. The idea would therefore be that from your own, say, EVM compatible MetaMask wallet, you'd be able to interact with any Bitcoin related protocol or dApp with extreme ease. Meanwhile, from the protocol level, they save on fees and they offload that data bloat to XSAT. So let's take a look under the hood at the consensus method. They run a hybrid consensus method utilizing both proof of work and proof of stake to really get the best of both worlds. So let's just run through this. As we know, the Bitcoin network is the most robust proof of work network and probably the most robust network known to man. So XSAT leverages miners and mining pools here to synchronize the UTXO data and have it mirrored over onto the XSAT proof of stake network. So the first step is to, first of all, utilize these miners, the mining pools, as synchronizers to sync the data. So quite obviously, the data here needs to be robust, so we need reliable and big players. And so this is why the Bitcoin miners are being used, as those who are producing this data are the ones who are actually mining the Bitcoin blocks themselves and then mirroring it onto the XSAT network. So this is just the best stakeholder alignment possible. Furthermore, they are quite selective over the miners actually being used for this process to sign this BTC data. To be eligible, you must have mined a Bitcoin block within the last 72-hour period. So they're attracting the biggest miners and mining pools, as those are the ones that can meet this high threshold, this high standard. So as we can see from the data here, Synchronizers wise, they currently have 37.5% of the Bitcoin hash rate here on testnet, synchronizing data to XSAT. And you can see from this some of the major names: Antpool, F2 Pool, famous names in the mining industry there. So by mainnet, their goal is to achieve at least 51% of Bitcoin hash rates, contributing to this synchronization. This would mean achieving essentially as close as possible to proof of work without it being actual proof of work, therefore ensuring that the data is the most secure, decentralized, robust it possibly can be. 51% of the Bitcoin network, that would be rather impressive stuff. So then moving over, once the data is mirrored from proof of work, it comes to the proof of stake network here, where it's met by a set of 21 validators on the XSAT proof of stake chain. Their job here is to ensure that the data submitted is correct, and each validator does this by obtaining the Bitcoin block hash and submitting it. And once we have agreement between at least 15 of 21 validators, then the data is verified. Now, what's interesting here is the fact that the Synchronizers, the miners, are also seeing value in becoming validators. This is a pretty low lift or low barrier to entry for them to become validators as well. They know the data is going to be reliable. They're running their own nodes. So again, we have that stakeholder crossover, ensuring robustness of said data. These validators are staking Bitcoin in order to take on the role of validators, and they must stake a minimum of 100 Bitcoin. So there is a large financial stake at hand in this ecosystem. And so far, 39 validators participating, over 3,000 BTC staked. And if you run through this list, there's some pretty big names within here that you've probably seen before, industry titans, if you will. So in order to become a validator, as mentioned, you must stake a minimum of 100 BTC, obviously a large financial cost to that. Furthermore, only the top 21 nodes in terms of Bitcoin staked are eligible to run the validators. And subsequent to this, when XSAT staking begins, which should be 6 months post the network launch, so roughly 6 months from now, they will also have to start staking the XSAT token. So this ensures financial commitment to this ecosystem via Bitcoin and subsequently the XSAT token. Big names in here, the likes of OKX have joined as a notable validator to this network. And these validators stake their Bitcoin with custodians. Oftentimes, the validators are custodians themselves. And once staked, the Bitcoin is then issued as a wrapped version onto the XSAT network, contributing to TVL and opening up use cases for that Bitcoin. Essentially, anyone who holds Bitcoin can then become a staker. There will be a commission fee set by the validators, something to take note of, but you'll be able to stake BTC and earn XSAT tokens. So in essence, the security of the XSAT network is in the hands of Bitcoin hodlers. So once this two-step process is complete and data is verified, it is then stored in RAM and can then be used by protocols connecting to this ecosystem with trust in the fact this data is robust and transparent. So what we can see here is that XSAT, with their modular approach for Bitcoin, ensures that data availability and settlements can occur within their ecosystem. Any existing or upcoming Bitcoin L2s or sidechains can opt into this ecosystem, use the settlements or DA, remove some of the bloat and high costs associated with that, and all the while creating a more cohesive ecosystem with a unified source for data. So this creates a vast design space for developers to utilize the XSAT network and leverage it for an array of different assets. Bitcoins, ordinals, runes, BRC20s, ARC20s, all of those different asset types, but without having to rely on third-party oracles. And composability-wise, because this is a POS chain with EVM compatibility, it makes it a simple gateway for builders to build on top of. Being compatible with these common standards is obviously very important. You don't want to be spinning up new iterations of wallets or standards that people aren't used to using. Simply come, connect via MetaMask, deploy use cases on EVM, replicate your dApp here on top of Bitcoin liquidity under the Bitcoin rule set, using XSAT as that conduit layer. So as they call it, this docking layer will aggregate liquidity, increase the likes of transparency, robustness, and eat away at that Bitcoin L2 fragmentation. So this actually positions them quite uniquely in the fact that they are not competitors to Bitcoin L2s and sidechains, but they're here to facilitate movement between them and actually grow the overall pie. So let's take a look at the tokenomics here. Two tokens to discuss really, XSAT primarily and also RAM. Now XSAT has a fixed supply of 21 million, the same as Bitcoin, and will actually mirror the Bitcoin launch. So 21 million tokens and a halving cycle taking place every 210,000 blocks, and the initial starting block rewards being 50 XSAT. So here you can see the same as the launch method of the Bitcoin network. In terms of those block rewards, so proof of work, the synchronizers will receive a minimum of 10% of the block rewards for submitting that verified BTC block data. However, the block reward increases to 50% if the synchronizer is also the miner of the actual Bitcoin block. So synchronizers 10% or 50% of each block rewards. Then for the validators here verifying said data, the first 15 validators to verify signatures for each block will share 10% of the XSAT generated from the block rewards. And then the further incentive for validators to hold and stake XSAT is that once XSAT staking occurs, only qualified validators among the top 21 stakers by amount of XSAT staked will be eligible for rewards. So there will be buy pressure on this token. Then we have the BTC stakers receiving rewards as well. So if the synchronizer, say the mining pools here, if they don't discover the block being synchronized over to XSAT, there's an 80% of total block rewards getting split amongst the Bitcoin stakers here. However, if the synchronizer does discover a block, all participating nodes share 40% of the XSAT generated. So there will be a fair and even distribution of the token via block rewards. Users, as well, as you can see from the top paragraph, holding XSAT in your wallets will also ensure you can utilize the network of applications being built on top of XSAT in a very simple manner. No bridging, no multiple transactions, no handling of several gas tokens. The unified experience will be unlocked by holding XSAT. Then in terms of the RAM token here, this RAM, this physical RAM, has been tokenized on chain, and holders of RAM can lend it to the XSAT network. This is because technically the holders of RAM own the data rows of that RAM held. You can write UTXO data to the RAM and you can lend the RAM to XSAT. And what you'll be doing is receiving your proportional dividend rewards from the XSAT network as you decide to stake your RAM tokens. Now, interestingly, the XSAT token will be the governance token of the network, and it will govern the RAM DAO. XSAT Foundation themselves are a large holder of RAM. So you can see their linkage here. You need to own XSAT to govern the RAM. Again, this should put buying pressure on the XSAT token. And this RAM is a very valuable commodity that as the adoption of this network grows, the value of RAM should grow also. Now, this will be a fair launch project, meaning that even the team behind this need to either become synchronizers or validators or Bitcoin stakers in order to receive the token. There's no pre-mine, there's no team allocation, very interestingly. So distribution, just like Bitcoin, 21 million, fair launch. And if you've seen in the market this cycle, fair launch projects have done very well. So in terms of the roadmap forward for XSAT, the testnet has been launched, live and kicking for over 2 months at this point. They have just about this week finished their UTXO indexing. So the full initialization has occurred. The 840,000 blocks back to Genesis have been caught up with, which takes us forward to the mainnet launch. So the mainnet launch, which is eagerly anticipated here, we have a date, 23rd of October, 2024. So a very busy period here. Then into the following stages, we have around mid-November XSAT staking going live. So this is going to bring that utility to the token, drive a lot of demand for it, I believe, as well. And phase 2 sees decentralized asset custody and decentralized mining coming to this ecosystem and thus fully then aligning it with the Bitcoin ethos. So a heck of a lot to keep an eye out for. Hope you enjoyed this one. Check them out on socials to follow along and stay up to date. Subscribe if you're new. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.